The phone call from my father came at 2 a.m., his voice a jagged whisper. Your sister is outside your apartment. Open the door and let her take the photo, or we will erase you just like we erased her. My skin turned to ice. For 5 years, my family had buried the memory of a woman they claimed died in a tragic accident, a woman whose face they forced me to forget. But when my sister's hands shook as she sent that requested picture of my front door, the camera captured something impossible. Standing in the dim hallway reflection, right behind me, was the exact woman they swore was in a graveyard 6 feet under. Suddenly, the grief that had consumed my 20s transformed into pure terror. They didn't send my sister to check on me. They sent her to confirm her execution. And the dead woman? She was trying to warn me. My name is Sarah, and at 27 years old, I thought I had finally managed to escape the heavy, suffocating shadow of my family. I lived alone in a modest 4th-floor apartment, a space I deliberately chose because it was as far away from my parents' wealthy, tightly controlled estate as my budget would allow. Our relationship was cold, fractured by years of their relentless manipulation and a deep-seated paranoia that seemed to dictate their every move. On this particular night, the silence of my living room was shattered at exactly 2 a.m. by the jarring ring of my phone. I picked it up, my heart hammering against my ribs when I saw my father's name on the screen. Before I could even say hello, his voice came through, a jagged, frantic whisper that made my skin turn to ice. Your sister is outside your apartment right now, Sarah, he commanded, skipping any greeting. Open the front door immediately, let her take the photo of your entryway, and send it to me to prove you are alone. Do it now, or we will erase you just like we erased her. The line went dead. Trembling, I looked out the peephole. Standing in the dim, flickering light of the hallway was my younger sister, Clara, holding her phone with white knuckles. I unlocked the heavy deadbolt and pulled the door open, expecting an explanation. But Clara didn't look at me. With her expression of pure, unadulterated horror paralyzing her features, she raised her camera and snapped the flash directly into my face. Before I could even blink away the blinding white afterimage of the flash, Clara dropped her phone onto the welcome mat. The screen cracked, the sharp sound echoing through the empty corridor, and she turned and fled down the concrete stairwell, her frantic footsteps fading into the darkness. I stood frozen for a second, the chilly hallway air brushing against my face. Shaking, I knelt down, picked up the damaged device, and stared at the image she had just captured. The photo showed me standing in the doorway, my face pale and confused under the harsh glare of the flash. But it was the background that made my breath catch in my throat. In the glass cover of the hallway light fixture directly behind me, the camera had caught a sharp reflection. Standing right at the turn of the stairs, watching me from the shadows, was a woman with distinctive, piercing green eyes and a faded, crescent-shaped scar on her jawline. It was Elena. The very woman my parents swore had died in a horrific car accident exactly 5 years ago. My mind spun violently as a wave of suppressed memories rushed back. I vividly remembered the day of her sudden funeral. My parents had been eerily stoic, strictly forbidding an open casket under the guise of severe trauma, and rushing the probate of her modest estate before the week was out. We were told to grieve, to bury her memory, and never to speak her name again. Yet here she was, captured in a digital frame, watching me from the dark. They hadn't sent Clara to check on my safety. They had sent her to locate a ghost. I slammed the heavy door shut, twisting the deadbolt into place with trembling hands. My apartment, which had felt like a sanctuary just minutes ago, now felt like a glass cage. I frantically began typing on an encrypted messaging app, sending a text to Clara. What did you see? Why did they make you take that picture? A few agonizing minutes passed before the dots flashed on the screen. Clara's reply was desperate, stripped of all her usual composure. Sarah, they've been tracking you for weeks. They're completely paranoid. They think you found out what they did to her. The words hung in the air, fueling a sudden, burning need for answers. I rushed to my laptop, my fingers flying across the keys as I bypassed the security blocks to access our old family digital archives I hadn't looked at since the day Elena supposedly died. I wasn't entirely sure what I was looking for, but as I dug deeper into the family's corporate ledger, a glaring anomaly caught my eye. Starting the exact month of Elena's accident, a massive, recurring financial drain appeared on the books. Every single month, A wire transfer of $50,000 was sent from my father's primary business account directly into an offshore entity listed as Lazarus Trusts. There were no invoices, no contracts, and no services rendered to justify the millions of dollars that had flowed out of the country over the last 5 years. My parents hadn't been mourning a tragic loss, they had been funding a massive, secret operation. The timeline matched perfectly, leaving no room for coincidence. They were paying to keep a massive secret buried, and suddenly, the terrifying reality clicked. The money wasn't a memorial. It was hush money, and the paper trail was unraveling right in front of me. A sharp, rhythmic scratching sound at my living room window cut through the heavy silence, making me jump. I slowly approached the glass, my chest tightening. It wasn't my sister. Peering through the rain-streaked pane was Elena, her face pale, bruised, and frantic. I quickly unlocked the latch and pulled the window open, helping her scramble inside onto the hardwood floor. She was hyperventilating, her clothes damp from the midnight air, but those piercing green eyes were unmistakably alive. "Sarah, you need to listen to me," she whispered, her voice trembling as she locked eyes with me. "I was never dead. The car crash 5 years ago, it was completely staged." As I stared at her in utter disbelief, the devastating truth began to pour out. Elena had been a brilliant young accountant at my father's firm, and weeks before her disappearance, she had discovered a dark secret. My parents were running a massive, multi-million-dollar fraudulent investment scheme. To protect their own wealth, they had systematically forged our signatures, using my sister's name and my own as legal shields to funnel the dirty money. When Elena threatened to go to the federal authorities, they gave her a choice: vanish into the shadows with a monthly payout, or suffer a real accident. "I took the money to buy time, hiding under a false identity," Elena explained, gripping my hands tightly. "But I couldn't let them ruin your life. I stopped the payouts last month and came back to warn you. They know I'm here, Sarah. They're using your name to take the fall for everything, and now that they've tracked me to your building, they are coming to finish what they started 5 years ago." Before Elena could even finish her sentence, the lights flickered twice and died, plunging the entire apartment into pitch-black darkness. The steady hum of the refrigerator cut out, replaced by a suffocating, heavy silence. Then, the distinct sound of heavy, synchronized footsteps echoed down the tiled hallway outside. My heart leaped into my throat. The photo my father had demanded wasn't just a random check-in. The camera flash had confirmed Elena's exact position through the hallway reflection, pinning her directly to my apartment unit. Suddenly, a violent splintering crash shattered the quiet as my front door was kicked off its hinges. Shadows flooded into the entryway, the beams of tactical flashlights cutting through the dark. "Clear the rooms," a gruff voice barked. Adrenaline surged through my veins, wiping away my panic. Having lived here for 2 years, I knew this building better than any hired security team ever could. Grabbing Elena's ice-cold hand, I pulled her toward the old laundry closet in the hallway, where a small utility panel opened directly into the building's central maintenance shaft. We squeezed inside the tight, dusty space just as the flashlight swept across the living room. Holding our breath, we carefully climbed down the narrow iron ladder into the pitch-black basement, moving strictly by memory. Above us, the heavy thuds of the guards researching the rooms echoed through the pipes. We hit the concrete basement floor, slipping past the roaring water boilers and out into the rainy alleyway, managing to evade capture by mere seconds. They thought we were cornered, but we were finally moving out of the shadows. We kept running until we reached the bright, crowded interior of a 24-hour diner blocks away. Sitting in a booth under the neon lights, surrounded by normal people, the terror finally began to transform into cold, calculated anger. Elena pulled out an encrypted flash drive containing the core financial data she had saved, while I downloaded the hallway surveillance footage Clara had secretly forwarded to my phone. Together, we had everything we needed to dismantle my parents' empire piece by piece. Instead of running further, I pulled out my phone and dialed my father's private number, setting it to record. He answered on the first ring, his voice smug. "Did you learn your lesson, Sarah?" he asked. I didn't answer. Instead, I nodded to Elena. She leaned close to the microphone and spoke clearly. "The payout stopped, Arthur. And your daughters know exactly whose names you used to hide the stolen millions." The confident silence on the other end shattered instantly. My father gasped, a frantic, breathless sound as he realized his carefully constructed ghost had just come back to haunt him. "Sarah, wait, let's talk," he stammered, his arrogance completely evaporating into pure desperation. "We can transfer the assets to you. We can give you millions. Just tell me where she is, and we can fix this as a family." He was openly trying to buy our silence, inadvertently confessing to the entire fraudulent scheme and 5 years of forced confinement on tape. I quietly hit end call, packaged the audio file alongside Elena's financial evidence, and sent it directly to the federal authorities. 3 months have passed since that terrifying night, and the world I once knew has completely transformed. My parents are currently locked away in a federal holding facility, their massive financial empire frozen and dismantled as they await trial for fraud, extortion, and elder abuse. The toxic legacy they built on lies and manipulation has evaporated into nothing. Thanks to the overwhelming evidence we uncovered, Elena has been officially re-registered as alive and is thriving under federal protection, finally free to reclaim her real identity. As for me, I packed up my belongings and moved to a quiet, sunlit cottage far away from the shadows of my past. For the first time in 27 years, I can look at my front door and feel absolute peace instead of fear. Now, I want to ask you who listened to my story. What would you do if a single family photograph exposed a terrifying, life-shaping lie right in your own home? Would you have the courage to dig for the truth, or would you run? Comment your thoughts below, and please mention the city you are watching from so I can see how far this truth has traveled. Thank you for watching until the very end.